in the Marine Park. Okay, I try to make this very local so that it feels like we are actually there on this very nice island of Okinawa. Okay, so what I'm talking about, like many of the presenters, actually I only found out after receiving the abstracts, the program. So a lot of people are talking about teaching online, which is perfect, okay, because this is what we need. And I started the title with it's muted all this way. Okay. Yeah, I started my title with a pair of parentheses saying reluctantly, because somehow in early 2020 or any point in that crazy year, most of us are kind of forced to accept that this is just the way to go, whether you prefer to do it or not. Okay. Tech savvy, it's a word taken from actually our course material. There's a chapter about different generations, and we have Generation Y, baby boomers, and Generation Z, and so on. Because this group of people, I'm one of them. So older people tend to assume that, oh, you guys must be okay. You have no problem using computers. You have no problem using mobile devices, so you shouldn't be complaining, not only for this sake, but many other things, right? But is it? Is it? Or are there problems that just haunts teachers and students anyway, regardless of which generation you're in? But generation difference is not the focus here. Mainly, I just approach a few colleagues who happen to be in this generation and ask them to talk about what teaching online for one whole year, much longer than we first anticipated. We're still doing that, and we will be doing that at least till the summer. So that's 1.5. It's so long that you probably will forget how to teach in the classroom. I'll be wary of that. So again, I'm Pui Lee. I work for the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Okay, I should leave the chat on. Yes, yes. I guess generation-wise, the youngest possible batch of teacher, because Generation Z, people born after 1997, can they be teaching? Yeah, maybe. Those born in 1997, starting to be. So we may have another presentation a few years later. Okay, how can I move this? Okay, this is me. Self-absorbing. Okay, this is me in the Naha Marathon a few years back. Very good memories here. Okay, very good memories. And I also have my Buku FC T-shirt on. I bought this to support the reconstruction of Surrey Castle City. Very sad story, but yeah, let's hope it will get better later. Okay, me. I teach undergraduate level. Some background, English for academic purpose and English for specific purpose. So that could be academic English first for first years, and the second year we kind of narrow down to science English, engineering English, business English, and then more senior students, we help them with their thesis or their final year projects or lab reports, things like that. So it gets more specific when they are advance their studies. So UST is a public comprehensive university. It's not only for science and technology, we also have a very strong business school and a relatively smaller but growing school of humanities and social science. Now, where English teaching comes in, now, Hong Kong, it's predominantly Chinese, Cantonese, but higher education is predominantly English medium of instruction. So think about that. Like 90% of the students are local, speaking Cantonese, may have learnings for quite a long period of time. We started in kindergarten, but the proficiency still can vary. And even among the so-called elite students who actually come to university, a lot of them struggle a bit when everything is in English and they are dealing with abstract concepts in university. Okay, so yeah, many locals. So undergraduate is like 85%. And there were people from different parts of China and also a very healthy mix of international students. Postgrad is another story, but that's not the focus here. Okay, what I'm trying to do is to provide an updated view. Now, I entered this presentation as a practical presentation, so it's not very academically solid. It's not random sampled, and then I've done a lot of literature review now, but I just went and asked a few colleagues and kind of consolidate their view after 1 year teaching via Zoom. Now, it's not about the old topics about using technology in education. We saw a lot of things about how to get people to use it, how to get people to be less reluctant of using that. No, not that anymore, because we have to do it anyway. It's not about whether you have the right kind of equipment or not. It's not about resources. It's not about whether people are technically competent in dealing with Zoom or not. No, we are all increasingly competent. We can play magic out of it. Okay, a focus of younger generation, perhaps coincidentally, the people who are more willing to talk to me, are people of the same cohort. But like I said, like, a lot of people presume that, okay, we are okay. We should have no problem. We should enjoy it, isn't it? Okay, some known issues. So very casual background research. So a lot of people are talking about Zoom fatigue or Zoom burnout. And this name appeared a lot. Okay, it's a professor in organizational behavior, and she got interviewed like 20, 30 times. It's like the first page of Google search, Zoom fatigue, and it's like all this Marisa. So why Zoom is tiring? Well, we all know, right? Because you feel like you're constantly being watched. You feel like sometimes you just want to turn off the camera. And then we'll talk about whether turning on the camera is a good thing or not later on. Okay, there are different perspectives for that. And that comes to the all camera on debate. Now, particularly at the earlier stage in early 2020, there were a lot of people kind of trying to insist that all participants, students and teachers should turn on the camera. And quite some people see that as a sign of success. So if the students like me, they would turn on their camera. That's what people believed back then. But is it? And when students turn on their camera, the lesson will be more effective. Can you assume that? We'll see what my colleagues are saying now. I actually pop out. I know the eyeglasses industry doing better last year. So it's pretty exploratory. It's very spontaneous kind of study. So I just casually send out emails to a few colleagues who I think would respond. So it's not random sampling. It's not all the Generation Y teachers in my unit. But I managed to talk to them, some of them, some longer than the other, but I clarified what I actually mean in that email. So I can make sure that they're not drifting away. Pretty high response rate, because I chose my friends at the beginning. Okay, this is not method. I shouldn't say it's methodology, but what I did. 3 questions. I always tell my students, I'll give you 1 minute to read that. And then what do you think? Yeah, they overlap with each other, but it starts with a general elementary level question. And then I try to make it bring it into a longitudinal perspective. Like you may start off hating that, but gradually accepting that, and then end up loving it. Or maybe hating it again for some other reasons, I don't know. But I want to see that change over time. Or the mix of feelings. And that's actually the first question that came to my mind when I designed this little study. Okay, pandemic hopefully will be over some point this year. Let's hope, fingers crossed. Okay, but we wouldn't just abandon this whole thing, right? So if you can choose at that point, would you still choose to teach online? Or no, I want to go back to classroom immediately. Or maybe both, a mixture, some form. You can have Monday teaching online, Tuesday teaching classroom, or the mixed mode like some of us are talking about just now. Okay, these are the general findings. What happened in 2020? Let's review. So generally, there's less reluctance, if there were any at the beginning. The good thing is the repertoire of these teachers are expanded quite substantially. New pedagogies, even new mindsets. Okay, now you have different resources online, or they've always been there, but now you're more aware of their existence. And reflection, very important. Okay. It's not only an ad hoc thing, like now you're forced to teach online, you have to develop a new repertoire. No, but there are things that could backwash. Like even when you are back in the classroom, you would do things differently. You would do things more interactively, more effectively. And then I'll show you details now. Now the conclusion, as of 2021, 1 year after teaching online. So there's no mentioning of Zoom fatigue. I didn't stop them from saying something. I'm not the supervisor or the dean. You can say you're tired, right? We're just colleagues. I guess it's perhaps teaching as a performing art, be that in the classroom or be that online. So it's tiring, we know. So either way. So two of them actually say, hey, if you let me choose, I actually prefer teaching online for some reasons that I'm going to talk about later on. Some others are talking about mixed mode. So that brings us back to flipped classroom, blended learning, those, word of the time before the pandemic. But there's a lot of resistance in promotion of that. But now it seems like people started to embrace it. Now, of course, with Zoom or any software that you're using, you have a lot of new toys. A lot more video, because you now have space easily available for free to store videos for the purpose of learning or even for the purpose of assessment. Students are more comfortably doing that because that's part of their life, like than what TikTok or Instagram, things like that. I'm still in the Facebook generation, perhaps. It's very much text-based and photo-based. Chat is a very important thing, which, like currently I'm seeing that. It seems to be on the side, but it can very well be in the center stage and be a very important part of the lesson. And we will see editable shared documents as Google Doc or any other similar things that you can be using. Very useful in process writing. Okay, or collaborative writing, which we do a lot in university. I say silver lining, but okay, flexibility is good, right? Just like this morning in the keynote, of course, it's much more flexible. You can be in the comfort of your home. And I have like one colleague saying, hey, I can cancel the schedule to listen, but I'm happy to meet you at 11 p.m. if that suits both of us. There's a lot more individual consultation going on, a lot more small group interaction. So a lot more, actually, even more FaceTime, because students don't have to travel all the way back to campus just to see you for 15 minutes or even 5 minutes. Because in our case, a lot of our students don't live on campus. Okay, and it could be like 1 hour, 2 hour travel. Okay, safety is not that much about the virus. It's not that much about disruptive students. I think I don't really see any in my 10 years, 8 years teaching here. Come on, adults. And safety is, I think just like the previous section, not everyone is that extrovert or that immediately comfortable talking to strangers. Because a lot of the classes are randomly formed. You have students from different departments, different backgrounds, internationals, locals. So it could be quite a stressful environment if you're a little bit introvert or, but hey, you are behind the screen. You may be less embarrassed. You don't have to turn on the camera. You don't want to, or you don't want to don't have to do it all the time or immediately. So they give you perhaps a bit more security, or if you don't feel comfortable at all, you can type in the chat. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. Now it comes to the more deeper reflection part. Just now I mentioned flipped classrooms. Okay, particularly in higher education, we have to, if not assume, but helping the students to gradually get to the point that they are independently learning. Okay, because otherwise, that what would happen if you go to master's or PhD? Do you still remind your professor? You expect your professor to remind you your assignment deadlines and so on. We expect them to become to come prepared. Yeah, it's not you come 9 a.m. and then get spoon-fed, and then do a few assignments, and then you get your grade. No, right? We want to move away from that. We've been talking about that for many years. Continuous assessment. We don't want to rely on big examinations, high-stake examinations which stress people out. We don't want to do that. But reality is we are still very often doing that. Or maybe we just change the names, like from homework to tasks, from examination to assessment, but actually it's the same thing. And now we can't, right? Because we want to, we are worried about cheating. We can't just give out fill in the blanks. We used to have fill in the blanks quite a lot, actually, even at undergraduate level, but now we can't. So we're forced to actually walk our talk. You have to come up with ways of assessments that are continuous, that are not one-off, and that could be open book. And even if you have book with you, you can't cheat. No exam actually is tougher. No students here. Okay. And other reflection. Now, that make me recall my teacher training days. Okay, we know the differences between audio learners, and there are visual learners who prefer to read and write, or nowadays type in the chat box or type in the news group, or do blog or blog entries. They can make beautiful websites if they're hands-on learners, or they prefer to build things, or to perform, or to come up with a drama. Why not? But I'm afraid before the pandemic, it's still very much Okay, we have one presentation that's individual, a bigger one that is group, and then, you know, usual routine. Today I am going to talk about, and then you get it right. At the end of term, you write an essay. Bye. There's not much variety. It's not appreciating the diversity or not tapping into the different talents of people. There are people who could be reluctant speakers, like Crescent's silent period theory. We all learn that in teacher training, but it's simply ignored. Like a student come in at the beginning of the semester, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you kind of label that student as not active. Okay. Like in the all camera on debate, like a lot of people used to believe that, okay, you have to turn on your camera, you have to look like you are very active. But hey, they may be behind the black wall, but there could be all kinds of mental activities going on. And then sometimes I see some very wise words from 18, 19, 20 years old in the chat box. Those people, a lot of them are behind a black wall or a very funny icon. Are there ways to bring in their contribution, like a shared document, okay? Or even a forum, or have we spent time actually talking to them individually? I know, like sometimes it's a cultural thing because they don't want to look like students pad, and then, you know, but when you are talking to them one-on-one, they could have all the brilliant ideas. So what next? Now, I think we teacher researchers, can we call ourselves teacher researchers or reflective practitioners? There are a lot we can learn from other industries instead of staying in the silo of teacher, or one kind of teacher. Is it better if we can be like radio hosts? It's not really that interactive. It's not like fitting that well into the paradigm of communicative approach, like 80% student talk. It's interactive in a way. You have call-in programs. But, you know, people like to listen to the radio, but they don't enjoy lessons. What's the problem? Aren't we supposed to be the expert facilitators? And how about those people who make a living and a lot of money out of, you know, having a meal online being broadcasted? What's the trick? Maybe they're not directly talking to students, which we emphasize, oh, you have to talk to students. But you can see the fans typing on chat and they're responding to the people in the chat room very quickly. And they kind of organize and consolidate ideas very quickly. So is that a thing that we can learn from? Obviously, I can't do that. I'm kind of not that multitasking capable people. Oops, too early for me. And most of the responding colleagues actually are thinking of like mixed mode, which again is one thing which people are very resistant to. Like they say, oh, this gets the worst from both worlds. But hey, it doesn't have to. How can we get the best from both worlds? But we can't just play magic in our cubicles. So we would need support, like be that training or be that theoretical framework or even equipment, softwares. But for me, it's still quite vague, like how that could happen, how to integrate all these ideas. Okay, not only online, but I guess a lot of that can be applied to live and mixed classrooms as well. Okay. Almost time for a beer. Okay, so floor is now open. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you wish to ask a question or to type it in the chat. The chat box has been really lively while you've been talking.
Yeah.
You've inspired a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah, to make sense, that's what we believe at the very beginning, Susanna. Sorry, I might have pronounced your word incorrectly. But again, they could be thinking, or they may feel more comfortable writing. So if that's the case, just let that be. It's new, and yeah, students didn't know what to expect either.
Right, I have a question for, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Pino. Hi. Hi, how are you?
I can hear it. Good, good.
All right,
Yes.
am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, yes, you're pronouncing my name correctly. Thank you.
I should be pronouncing correctly, so to address the right person. Right, I'm just curious. What how do parents in Japan think about online learning?
You know, that's a great question. You know, I haven't taken it quite that far. Like, I'm giving a presentation later, like, about what teachers thought in Japan, and I've done a study on what students thought. But actually, the parents' angle, that's you know, that's kind of a new one for me. So I can't really answer, but I assume that they just want their kids to get through. You know, they want their kids to get the credit. You know, they understand there's a pandemic, like, and they have to, you know, do like these things online. But basically, like, a lot like the students and some teachers, they probably don't really like the online lessons overall.
They don't like it. Right, from
Sorry, I couldn't hear it. Yeah, they don't. My thinking, you know, from surveying like over 300 students and just like the general feel in Japan is that, you know, online learning in this context is probably behind, you know, other places in the world.
So what is your teaching
context? For many
context?
reasons, you know, I could go into like a lot of detail, but just.
Sorry to interrupt, but
my
if there are
teaching
people
is
who have questions for the speaker, they might want to ask those. And
sure.
there are other breakout rooms available if you guys would like to continue your conversations there.
Sure. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm hijacking.
I should stop sharing.
So we have a few more minutes for questions if you have them for this.
Okay.
You can ask. Or if you have questions for everybody else, please, Sam.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
So how much time you spend on developing your IT skills so that you have, I mean, really the class that is pretty similar to the class you have offline?
Okay. That's like we started to move online actually at the end of 2019 for other reasons other than the pandemic. That's quite sudden. But then we had the winter break. So that's all training that went out. And then because we're using that on a daily basis. So I guess that's enough time for you to use every single button. And I guess Zoom is perhaps not too difficult a system to play with. And then you also try to bring in all other possible sources like Google Doc.
I was asking it because I was watching quite a few tutorials. so that, I mean, I could just learn how to compile a questionnaire and things. So, I mean, in the first phases, that took me a lot of time. And then, you know, that was apart from preparing for your class.
I think a trick is perhaps it's no need to be too worried about being not interactive enough when you are beginning. You don't have to burden yourself too much. Okay, just present things clearly, but allow some time for the students to ask questions, to interact with you. My suggestion is perhaps leave at least like 10, 15 minutes at the end. And then you will see how they've been doing.
If everybody would like to unmute themselves and give a round of applause to Faison, we're at the end of our time. Nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll stop the recording.